And hello, it's time. Can you believe it? It's time for you and me to be getting together right now. And I've got some stories for you. Talking about Kim Kardashian and what the heck is going on with her endorsement and then backing up on the sexualization of children. Going to talk to you about the disastrous situation that Kari Lake is facing down in Arizona with Maricopa, that 5-0 disaster of an election process. We're going to expose that and what Trump has to say. And then we're going to talk about also, is it possible that Brazil's military is siding with Bolsonaro? The nation is not willing to give up. It is like election lawfulness, election fraud, and the will of the people all over the place is being thwarted. And why is that important? Because it's happening. It's going to increase till we deal with it. But I'm bringing something to you right now you need to have for your children and for the future. It's called Legacy Box. That's who is going to be sponsoring this show today. Now, why I chose this is because as I've gotten older, I've got all these cassettes. I've got DVDs. Annabelle and I have all these, what are they? They VHSs. You remember what those are? Those really big ones. And my dear wife has recorded, because she's a film major, she's recorded and chronicled everything, including I've got films of me as a baby and her as a little girl. Now, look, your legacy is the greatest gift you give your children. What I want you to do is think about taking all those audios, all those DVDs, all those VCR tapes or VHS tapes, and put them together in a box. Send it to someone who will send it all back to you in a digitized format so that you can download it and play it. You could spruce it up with some music. The point is, the vault of your personal family history is preserved. And I say, leave a commentary to your grandchildren and to your children on your hopes for their life and what you want for their future. I can't tell you what a psychological anchor it is for young people struggling with identity and in the future they're going into, to have a family crest, a family mission, a family voice that goes back with the story of generations that you preserve, that gives them a sense of legacy, purpose, identity. This is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob gave us a legacy box in the Old Testament of generational history. Give it to your children. LanceWallnau.com/legacy box. Believe me, it's the gift that will outlast you for a lifetime. And now, the episode. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. Today, I'm wearing my new leather jacket. Annabelle and I went shopping, and I might take this jacket off because it's too hot. I'm roasting, as my mother would say, on the set here at the Lance Wallnau Show in Dallas, Texas. But I've got news for you. There's so many hot stories. That's what it is. There's so many hot stories I've got to deal with. I'm feeling the heat already. You don't want to miss it. I very, very rarely talk about Kim Kardashian because she doesn't have anything really important to say. But she is giving us a real insight into the pedophile, crazy, satanic world that is in fashion. I mean, it's like the floodgates of hell have opened up. And I got to tell you something. There's something good about it because the pushback of the average person right now against what they're discovering. Are you guys tracking this story at all? I know for some of you, that just don't go out off of the farm that often. My viewers, I know who you are. You tell me that you don't listen to any news or anything. You listen, you do Elijah streams and maybe Flashpoint. And I'll tell you right now, if that's your diet, it's not good enough. And I'm not on streams, but I'm certainly on Flashpoint, because you got to get out there and get a better sampling of what's really happening, because what's happening now all over the world is worth covering. Now, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Kim Kardashian, everyone's talking about, has finally broken her silence on a Balenciaga. Is that how you pronounce it, Chelsea? Balenciaga? Balenciaga advertisement campaign that featured children holding BDSM-clad teddy bears. Now, I always get confused. This is bondage and sadomasochism. This is people that like to get, tied up and beat up. I guess their sex life is boring, so they break out the Cool Whip and bicycle chains or whatever else they do for fun. But what we got here is the Kardashian, is so outraged because I think one of her product lines is tied in with this. And after the internet erupted, it's like the soccer moms that are looking at what their kids are getting taught in drag queen hour, critical race theory, and sexualization, grooming. It's like, what in the world? And so that the internet has its own, convulsion takes place. And it said, and it basically is in an uproar, so much so that the ad campaign. Now, we can show you a couple of images here. For those of you that are on the podcast, 800,000 downloads a month. I know that some of you right now would like to know what is on the screen, but we even have a debate in our own team here. Should we put on the screen what is being commonly advertised? I think you need to see some of these pictures because it's overtly in your face satanic exploitation of children in bondage and being subjected to sexual tortures and such. If this is going on in the uber rich, drug infested, Illuminati type circles of the elites with fashion and power and in industry, what happens is it slips out. It slips out because it's normal for them, and then they try to push it on you, and then immediately there's a gag reflex. So Kim, because her own brand is now taking a hit by association with her endorsement of Balenciaga, she goes salivated over Balenciaga. So then she's like, hey, wait a second. As for my future with Balenciaga, I'm currently reevaluating my relationship with the brand, basing it off, she says, their willingness to accept accountability for something that should have never happened to begin with, and the actions I'm expecting to see them take to protect children. Oh, suddenly she's Mama Kim. Forget about her sex tapes. We won't even go there. But I mean, she's a mother now, and she's concerned about what the children are seeing. So Balenciaga filed a $25 million lawsuit against the producers of the advertisement. Get this. This is the age you live in. The Balenciaga corporate team that was just stumbling over themselves over their endorsement of this edgy new kind of sexual tease with children involved, they approved of the ad campaign. And now they just go, wait a second. How dare you deceive us into thinking that people would not be outraged? I mean, we're outraged looking at it. Well, if you were outraged, if you're going to sue them, why did you approve the campaign? You're telling me we're that stupid? You think we're that stupid? That if you put out a billboard from, Marlboro or something, and then and people get mad at the advertisement that the management at Marlboro's advertising agencies goes, how dare you put that billboard up with us approving it and funding it? Never do that again. So the fashion brand ad had unsettling pictures of children holding teddy bears dressed in bondage suits, and that's the least bizarre of them. So I'm just going to I'm going to drop the story there, except to tell you that this is trending, and the reason why it's interesting to me is it shows that there is a wardrobe malfunction threshold in the American culture still. And that was, of course, when Janet Jackson was working with Justin Timberlake to do the famous Super Bowl, boob shot. That was the shot heard around the world. I was watching it. To show you how the brain works, I didn't see it. It was right in front of my face, but I didn't see it because I couldn't believe my own eyes. Therefore, my brain said it didn't actually happen. It must have been an optical illusion. Till after the event, then I realized, oh my gosh, I sat through it and couldn't see it because I just couldn't believe they would do something like that. Well, the American gag reflex does exist. Now, where do you draw the line? Not in same-sex marriage, not in transgender yet, not in the chemical castration of 12-year-olds or the mastectomies of teenage girls, the irreparable damage that's done to little boys and girls in the trans movement hasn't quite, I don't think that message has come home yet like teddy bears in bondage, but somehow this one really hit a nerve. So thank God there's still a nerve in the body of the heart of America. So we'll come back and follow that story. Just wanted you to know Kim Kardashian is outraged after everybody got outraged with her. She got outraged. It's hypocritical. Sorry to say, Kim. Everybody knows that you're only outraged because you were getting bad press. If it was like heralded as a really catchy advertising thing, you know, a new genre of fashion, you'd be like all over it going, well, that's my brand.
This portion is too hot to handle for social media. Go to lancewallnau.com/podcast to listen to the entire show.
Now, the Brazil election and Carrie Lake both should bother us because they are defiant acts of darkness against the will of, yes, Christians that are praying and voting and doing everything they know how to do lawfully and ethically in order to have righteousness prevail over wickedness. It doesn't matter. Because there's a way that, you see, lawlessness has a bigger playbook because righteousness can only do the plays. You ever notice how they always criticize conservatives as part of the playbook on the left is they got to catch you in some immorality. Meanwhile, like I said, they're castrating kids, they're sleeping with animals, whoever, pedophilia, they're pushing the envelope on everything. And you never hear, there's no line on the left which we really know where the line is, because this is part of the philosophic problem with the left. The right has a hard cliff. You cannot go past this point or you're no longer accepted on the right. The left has no line. Is it abortion in the first 6 months? What about the 9th month? How about within 30 days after the baby's gooing out of the womb, kill it? That's the California law. It's freaky. There's no line on the left. It's hard to define the line because lawlessness has more options. There's 100 ways to cheat where there's 10 ways to legitimately vote. You see my problem? You see the American problem? This is why the Bible says that because lawlessness shall abound in the last days, the love of many shall wax cold. What does love mean? Your forbearance, your flexibility, your patience, your endurance, your willingness to put up with something. It waxes cold, meaning it atrophies, meaning it fossilizes, meaning it contracts, it loses its flexibility because lawlessness fatigues you. What's the use? You say it's every man for himself. I'm no longer going to observe this social contract of doing what is in the best interest of my country or my neighborhood or my neighbor. I'm looking out for me because everybody else is looking out for themselves and they're all stealing. You see, this is the root of Marxism. It's envy. It's not philanthropy. Contrary to what people think, Marxism isn't about compassion for the poor. It's about envy towards those that have something and resentment so that you take it. Now, once you start that cycle of envy and resentment, and nobody's earned legitimately anything in life, but they've had their white supremacy or their capitalism or their Protestant whatever, their American whatever, that once you've lost the cement of civilization, which means that we believe there are rules, moral laws, and absolutes that govern human behavior. And they're pretty much modeled in the Ten Commandments. I mean, I don't know why there's such a big problem with this. The average woman will say, I don't want my husband cheating on me. The average employer will say, I don't want people stealing from me. The average, person in fraternity says, I don't want someone killing me in my sleep. I mean, the laws, the moral laws are kind of like common sense laws. But once you put those aside and you don't have any lasting permanent morality, then you have lawlessness. And when you have lawlessness, it's every man for himself. And you lose the cement of civility that holds civilization together. You lose Western civilization. By the way, they don't do that in communist China. I want you to notice something. Islam and communist China are two very coherent tribal systems that are competing with Western civilization. Well, we're falling apart. China is in like lockstep. You talk about Nazis that goose step. They're in lockstep, communist China. And they believe in the glory of China. While we strip America of its dignity, we don't stand for our flag. We applaud athletes that mock the flag in foreign countries. Every other country is in tears over their flag. I should tell you something. They look up during these Olympics. I looked up. You can see during the Olympics. You can see it now during the soccer, tournaments. Are we calling it soccer? Or is it called football? Soccer. Well, you'd be surprised. They're calling it football in some of the journalism I'm reading in other countries. They call it football. We know what football is. Soccer. But in the World Cup, all these nations, man, they dress in the colors of their country. They cry at the anthem. We got, for us, it's like something's wrong if you're not protesting your country. This is the sickness that is taking down America. And what do you think is going to fill the void? Those disciplined nationalists, those that love their nation. Those that love their nation and respect their nation are overtaking the nihilists that hate this nation and want nothing more than to see this nation come down. And then how are you going to rally against the attack of other nations when you have no national identity anymore? Well, now you begin to understand the genius of Satan's takedown of America. Back to Brazil. Brazil is an intensely nationalist nation. They have great pride in their country. Bolsonaro, as a military leader, represents the pride of that country. The Marxist Lula, what a name, Lula. He was in prison because of corruption, but the leftists in their Supreme Court, it's like if you had these guys in America able to expand the court and put on them some crazy people, which is what they're doing. If they put crazy judges up, you see the last one they just put up. I mean, this woman was set there purely for a future trans case where she can't define a man from a woman. She's being put there to support the trans community. My God. Anyway, the Brazilian protests are intensifying because the nationalists are up against Lula, who is a communist Marxist, who will easily sell the country out to communist China. China and him are already signing the work right now. China wants to go over and start to plunder South America so that it can complete its strangulation of Marxist takeover, the dragon extending its wings over the One Belt, One Road policy to get the resources in South America as well as Africa. Because I wonder if this dragon isn't the end-time dragon we talk about in the book of Revelation, where it talks about a great dragon.
This portion is too hot to handle for social media. Go to lancewallnau.com/podcast to listen to the entire show.
What will it take for us in America? What will it take for the people in Brazil to protect themselves? I mentioned Matthew Tyrman's name a moment ago. I want to go back to him, Matthew, Tyrmand. I'm giving you that name because you want to follow him on Twitter. He's the guy that knows more about what's happening in this Brazil election than anyone else. And he's not closed the window on military alignment with Bolsonaro, though I don't know what Bolsonaro can do unless they can produce evidence. I don't know what Kari Lake can do. I'm going to be the prophet that tells you the truth. I'm the Jeremiah prophet. I'm the prophet that tells you, when I give you good news, you know it's good, because I won't hesitate to tell you the truth you don't like, because I believe God can be in all the news. But the lesson here is the corruption is overtaking the righteous, and the righteous are going to have to get very muscular if they want to save their country or save Arizona. The Brazil election will be certified finally on December 19th. That gives us 3 weeks to see what the prayer and the military, Bolsonaro, can do in the face of a voter machine and a court system that is lockstep, depriving him and half the country of legitimacy and power. This is the end-time battle we're in. Tares against the wheat. But I'm going to give you my optimistic take on it. And that is that God is doing this, allowing this exposure to happen in such a way that we are not ignorant of what we're up against. Even the midterms was a wake-up call to say we are not prevailing, that the ordinary issues aren't moving the country. The country's lost its conscience and is living in such deprived cul-de-sacs of intellectual propaganda that it's not listening to me. It's not listening to Dan Bongino or Fox. It's not listening to the War Room. It's not listening to your favorite preachers or prophets. They aren't hearing us. And the enemy is so balkanized, if you will, the country, that we're divided up in these different quadrants, and it creates challenges in being able to hear anything. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to have to pierce the veil. That's why I'm proposing we're now getting to the point where we're going to have to go to the next level. And the next level is the gathering of the dangerous. LanceWallnau.com/gathering. This is something Kim Clement said to me while he was yet alive and while we traveled together. He said that he overheard the devil saying there was something that he was telling his lieutenants to begin to disrupt and mark, and it was people that were dangerous. Now, to the devil, dangerous people are people that will interrupt his plan, that have blueprints that will expose and destabilize his agenda. God is right now gathering his dangerous ones, the ones who are a threat to hell, a threat to Satan's agenda, a threat to the globalist regimes, and I believe it is the body of Christ, only the anointed body of Christ, that has power to deal with the gates of hell. It's not a good commentary. It's not a good best-selling book or an author or a musician or an artist. It's the church, the ecclesia. I will build my ecclesia, and that will prevail against the gates of hell. And hell is prevailing. So it's time for the church to go do some travailing and enter into its new level. And so after all this time, I took the gathering of the dangerous. Kim said the devil's afraid of this gathering. And I said, now's the time to bring the teaching out. LanceWallnau.com/gathering. Now listen, people, don't be discouraged when I give you the juice, because this is juice for Jesus. It's like juice for Jesus. I'm just telling you what we need to know. The Spirit of God is raising up a resistance in Brazil. There's something going on in China. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. Something's going on in Maricopa, and even the agitation and the anger of the masses is fueling a populism with the left, with its lust of perversion and its incendiary agitation over abortion rights and such, is not a level of emotional coherence and power that can match the force and fury of the next great awakening. Because the conscience is going to be probed profoundly by the power of God, because things are going to get more dicey over the next 2 years. And if you're prepared for it, you're going to see the power of God come into where you are, because that's what the gathering of the dangerous is. You host the power of God and the pushback on the darkness that is around you. It's time that we stop trying to be Switzerland in this war with the devil. You can't afford to be woke during this awakening, or you'll miss it. Anyway, we're going to be back tomorrow. I don't want you to miss it. Remember that? You want to get the gathering of the dangerous, go to LanceWallnau.com/gathering. And I'll be talking to those that gather with the gathering. And we're going to have some special programs just for the people that are doing the gathering, because it's for the marketplace. It's for the home. It's for the business. It's for planting the church in places where the devil never expects you to show up. That's the next thing we're doing. See you tomorrow. God bless you.
Thanks for listening to this Lance Wallnau broadcast. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to subscribe and